Okay, Tanya Speedrun, chapter 6, who's ready? Until now, we were basically focusing on the Nefesh kiss, and it was so nice and warm and cozy and fuzzy and beautiful to speak all about the godly soul. You see, in chapter 1, we said every person has an animal soul inside that just likes to survive and eat and drink and act like an animal and have delicious blue popcorn. Why would anyone want blue popcorn? I don't know. But then chapter 2, we said, what about the godly soul, the godly spark in each of us? And in chapter 3, we said the godly soul has 10 personalities. That it has intellect, 3 forms of intellect that control its 7 emotions. And then in chapter 4, we said it expresses itself in the world through Torah and mitzvahs. Now we're going to switch back to the animal soul. And we're going to discuss the animal soul. What are its personalities? And how does it express itself in the world? Who's ready? So, we're going to start off with the animal soul's 10 facilities, and they are exactly the same as the godly souls, but they work in the opposite order. You ready to hear this? Now, the animal soul also has 3 forms of intellect: conception, contemplation, and connection. And you're going to have to see the class on chapter 3 for more details. It also has 7 emotions: kindness, which is giving; severity, which is holding back and restraint; tiferes, which is the in-between, which literally means beauty, harmony, etc. So here's the thing. While in the holy, godly soul, all the middos, all the emotions are controlled, are directed, are used as a tool of the intellect. In the impure soul, it's quite the opposite. The intellect is a tool for the emotions to express themselves. Let me tell you the difference. One is that someone sits down and they start thinking that really, if God is great and he could have made anything or not made anything, and nevertheless he chose to make me and keep me alive and give me everything I need, therefore it only makes sense that I should love him. And then they use their emotion of love as a tool for their intellect. But what about the animal soul? It works quite the opposite. The animal soul says, I love blue popcorn. I want blue popcorn. I desire blue popcorn. I crave blue popcorn. And then it uses the intellect as a tool, thinking, how can I get blue popcorn? Will there be blue popcorn by Tanya Shear? How long do I have to politely sit there listening to Shear before I can take the blue popcorn? And it uses out its intellect as a tool for the emotions. Now that we understand that goes together, why do we need any intellect at all? Why can't just have emotions? Remember, it's an animal soul. Animals are emotional, instinctive. Animals aren't intellectual. Now, you'll see there's many animals that actually have very good minds. You know, ravens, octopi, what other examples? Lions, dolphins, gorillas. They're actually quite capable of doing all sorts of different things. They run tests on them of color coding and numbers, and they can figure things out. But the difference between an animal and a human, besides for the level of intellect, the amount of IQ points, they say that dolphins have an IQ of 60. Now, I don't think that their minds exactly work the same way, but without getting into comparisons too much, the biggest difference is that a human, or at least someone who should be acting as a human, their mind controls their emotions and instincts and directs their emotions and instincts to allow their mind to further itself. As opposed to an animal, it uses its mind just to get its emotions and instincts. So let's say the lionesses, they go hunting. You ever seen in South Africa? A pack of lionesses are hunting a gazelle, and they split off. They have one scares it from this way, one from that way, and then 2 of them come running this way. They all work together. It's very smart. It's a very smart tactic. The only thing is, the whole reason they're doing that is in order to get their food. None of them are doing this because they sat down and decided this is the correct thing to do. So that's how the animal soul works. Now, it's very important to notice that it can't just have an animal soul of just pure emotions, because emotions are always directed and are always in accordance with the intellect. But it just depends. Is it directed or in accordance? You see, the difference is between an adult and a child, for example. Let's say an adult. Let's say you have someone who is a very deep thinker, a philosopher, and he spends so much time thinking. And I was speaking to this guy the other day. He's doing a PhD in philosophy. I didn't know people still did PhDs in philosophy nowadays. Anyhow, so what happened? Such a person, when he gets angry, it's because he sat down and he thought about his opinion on the cultural, social divide in, give me a country, in Mongolia, and he realized that this is very unfair, so therefore he got angry. As opposed to a child A child got angry very quickly over very little things. Why is that? Because when you have a bigger mind, it causes the emotions to be more directed, as opposed to a little kid who has very small mind, small ideas. Then the emotions are kind of out of control. So you have a little kid with his small ideas. So if you take away his lollipop from him, then I remember my nephew was once eating a lollipop, and he wasn't meant to be eating a lollipop. So his father takes the lollipop out of his mouth, started flipping out, started freaking out, crying, screaming. I don't blame him. You know why? Because in his mind, taking away a lollipop is literally the worst thing that's happened in his life. It's a disaster. It's terrible. Who knows if we'll ever recover from such a calamity? In his mind, makes sense. For an adult who has a much broader picture and is like, you know what, there's much more important things in life than a lollipop, not going to react like that until something that for them is a lollipop is taken away. For someone who's a bit more of a smaller minded person, maybe their car gets taken away. Someone a bit larger minded person, maybe their freedom gets taken away. Either, whatever it is, the main thing is the intellect, according to the grasp of the internet, is how controlled the emotions are. So the same thing, that was all with severity, with gvura, with getting angry. Let's talk about love. What's a little kid love? Perfect. Potato sticks, classic flavor. This for a little kid, if you give this to a 2-year-old, you'll make his day. His face will light up. Sohir Pondov. He will be in a state of ecstasy. No, not that. No one likes that. Sprite, 0 sugar. No. He'll be in absolute ecstasy. But what will happen? He's going to be so excited about this. And tomorrow, hopefully, he'll be a bit older. And he'll be more excited about something deeper. And then when he becomes a teenager, you'll have to get him a phone to get excited. When he goes to yeshiva, you'll have to give him a sefer of Torah to get excited. An adult, you have to give him a car. A retiree, you have to give them a house. So as people get more advanced, then you have very intellectual people. Then you have people that only get excited and they only have pleasure and desire for classical music. Or someone higher than that who only, what they enjoy is reading an intellectual dialogue. Or someone even more than that who enjoys learning Torah. So the mind controls the level of the emotions expansion. Now here's the thing. Now that we figured out how Nefesh Bahamis works on the inside, how does it express itself? It expresses itself in thought, speech, and action. That's how it expresses itself to the outside. Thought is the inner expression to the outside. Speech is halfway, and action is all the way on the outside. Now, here's the thing. Which thoughts and speech and actions the animal soul do? You would think maybe killing, stealing, eating, like a glutton. No. Anything that's not holy is animalistic. You ready for why? In the world, when Hashem made the world, it was just Hashem. So Hashem had to hide himself. Otherwise, we wouldn't have much free choice. Would we, Hillel, if you walk down the street and just see Hashem everywhere, would you ever have a desire to run into 7-Eleven, fill up a Slurpee, and run out without paying while chuckling with the evil maniac laughter? No way! Because God's everywhere. But in order to have free choice, he had to hide himself. So there's 3 levels of how hidden he is. There's Kedusha, which is all things that are clearly holy. Here we go. Holy Sefer. Everyone sees this as like, oh, that's all about God, isn't it? So godliness is revealed in it. Then I have something which is godliness completely hidden in it. Let's say stolen money. It's something that's used for the opposite of godliness. Something's used quite the opposite of godliness. It's against the Torah. So that godliness is completely hidden. And then there's the middle ground. There is what's called klippas noiga. Klippa means a peel. That's the hidden, what Hashem hides himself in a peel, in a manifestation of a covering. But noiga means shining, the shining peel. So that means you can't see the godliness in it, but you can see the potential for godliness in it. For example, a Nature Valley crunchy bar. This is a very good example. You know why? Because firstly, you could use this and you could steal this from the store. That's bad. You can use this to give you more energy to come to Tanya Shir, which is good. You can just eat this for the sake of eating it because, like, whatever, I'm in the mood of eating. That is klippas noiga. That's just being animalistic. It's not being bad. It's not being good. It's just being normal, like an animal, just surviving, just living thoughtlessly. So everything that someone does is the other, that's not for Kedusha, is already God's covered in it. It doesn't mean it's bad. It means it's not godly. Now, to be godly means, what does it mean to be godly? What does it mean for something to be holy? It means it's completely nullified to God. You see, some people are like, hey, everything's about me. Some people are like, you know what? Everything's about God. And the same with every creation. When something's existence is all about the screaming out, this isn't about me. The whole world's about Hashem. The whole world's about God. Then that's Kedusha. As opposed to when something says, hey, things are about me, there's also space for God. Or things are about me, and there's no space for God. Last point, that everything you could do could be expressing godliness. Let's say garbage. Let's say you have raw material. Wow, beautiful, a fresh new tissue. People want to buy this from the store. That is good, a good piece of goods. Then you have trash. Here, the wrapper is trash. It's just going to go to the landfill and destroy Staten Island. Here you have the Nature Valley bar, which is in a reusable packaging. I don't know how reusable, but it's reusable. So what do we have here? It's something that could be trash. It's not a raw material. It could be trash. You could just throw it in the landfill, or it could be recycled and made into good material. So too, everything that's in Klippas Noiga. That most things in the world, you could use it for good, you could use it for bad, you could just leave it the way it is. And when do we bring God into our lives? When we take something and we make it scream, everything is about Hashem. Like, for example, if your friend needs a tissue, and you're like, hey, I have a box of tissues, let me help you. You've now expressed your obvious soul, your love for your fellow Jew, and you've used this for a mitzvah, and now it's all about Hashem. As opposed to if your friend says, I need a tissue, and you take the tissues and throw it to the other side of the room as far as you can, and go on to explain to everyone how you got such a good throwing arm, then I believe that is making it not a place for Hashem in our world. And the last thing I want to say is about a story, a very important story, that there was once a bocher who he had something that was very much separating him from Hashem. He had his American bocher, and he was in 7th grade, this little kid, 12 years old, and he told his parents he wants to get a nice new shiny smartphone. So his parents, being very responsible adults, told him, no, you're too young. But being a good American kid, he made sure to nudge his parents every day. And being good American parents, they didn't know how to say no, so they got him a smartphone. So then the smartphone is Klippas Noiga. It's something you could use it to watch the Tanya Speedrun. You could use it to waste time, go in the calculator app just to see if it works well. Or you could use it for things that are distraction from Hashem's Torah. So this guy, it was apparently, after a while, he found that it was distracting him. He fell victim to the dopamine machine, to the algorithm monster that was stealing all of his time and more. So he went one day, and he lives in a nice house in New York City. And on the house, he has a nice roof with a view. He went to the roof with a view, and he threw his phone off the roof. And then he lived happily ever after. So what's the moral of the story? The moral of the story is you could choose what you could use things for. You can either use it for good, you can just keep it normal, or you can use something in a bad way that you might end up having to take drastic action. So what's the lesson? Everything in the world, it's up to us how to change it. Hashem made everything with opportunity. Are you going to uplift it, or are you going to make it go worse than you found it? And each of us have to take each opportunity to make everything as good as possible.